Arcane is a thrilling masterpiece. It's been a long time since I've watched a show where I had a hard time waiting for the next set of episodes to come out. There were so many aspects of the show that had me gasping for more, and each set of episodes increased my excitement for it. And this all genuinely surprised me because Arcane was a show I was not prepared to like. I've played League of Legends for a while, and while I was never great at it, I did enjoy the world around it, the cinematics, and the characters in it. But when Netflix tried to advertise me this new League of Legends TV show, I was very quick to dismiss it. Not that I had anything against League specifically, it's just I thought Arcane would be like nearly every other video game adaptation, a poor representation of what made the game great. There are countless video game adaptations, and while some are good or even great, most fall into the category of acceptable or a failure. And this is because most video game adaptations aren't focused on telling a good story, but to flood the project with references, Easter eggs, and other fancy colored paints. I thought Arcane would be like the rest, a show full of League Easter eggs and a quirky storytelling. I didn't think it would be bad, I just thought it'd be mediocre. But eventually I did watch it, and wow, was I wrong. Arcane is a show that takes anything mediocre and makes it amazing. There is almost no part of the show that I can critique in a severe manner. The show is built on several core foundations that make it one of the best animated shows of the year. And I tried to focus on one part. I thought I would make a quick video where I talked about one crucial exponent that made this show work. But that's impossible to do. There are just too many contributors that made this show fantastic. The world building, the writing, the characters, the animation, and oh my god, that animation. And everything else, it all contributes to this show's success. So like a true video essayer that I am going to talk about it all, and why Arcane is a brilliant show. The beginning shot of the show encapsulates exactly what this show is going to be about. Two girls struggling to survive, and a city tearing itself apart. Without any dialogue, the show shows us exactly what is in store for our characters, and tells us how they feel, but it also explains what kind of place our characters are going to be living in. The city of Zaun is one of the best fictional cities I've seen in a long time. The city is filled with life and anticipation as the characters are living in it. The animation seeps into the world itself by showing us grand gorgeous shots of the tall towers of Zaun, but then shows us the darker and less grand shots of the Undercity, a place where it's really just people trying to get by, and while your perception might be that these people aren't as good as the people in the higher levels, the revelation of this is really similar to how it is with the districts and the capital in the Hunger Games. These are just two cities, one believing it's superior to the other, while the other feels like it's being oppressed and trampled on. Zaun's world building is expertly done. When you see Vi and the others on the rooftops in the beginning of the show, Zaun looks like a normal city. It's luscious and it's pretty. You can see it's just an average place. The sky is blue, the airships float across the sky, and the civilians go about their everyday routine. People are walking in patterns, there's order and stability. But this all comes at the cost of the Undercity, which is a mirror reflection of this beautiful city. When our characters exit the higher levels and enter the valleys below, the contrast is evident. No one is just walking around the street. There are traders and whorehouses, there's bars and mercenary shops, and it looks like a place that no one would want to live in. But as you experience this place, it becomes clear that the Undercity isn't a wretched place to live, it's just an honest one. Where one city pretends everything is alright at the expense of others, this one embraces its darker themes, the lifestyle, and shows us a more honest place to exist. Both cities are flawed, with people trying to do their best in them. Both cities have people who just want to be happy, live their lives, and more. While those visions are different from each person, the fundamentals of each city are the same. Both feel superior to the other and live with a tenuous relationship with each other. and this is only reinforced as we see how these people interact with each other. As the show goes on, the council begins to treat the Undercity with more disrespect, and the people below have a resentment for the people above that they even call them things like topsiders. But there's also a cultural difference between these two cities, and this is seen when we see Vander talk to the captain. When the captain explains that all she really needs is just someone to take the prison so the topsiders' politics will be resolved, Vander refuses, because Vander won't give up his own. While Vander has an agreement with the enforcers, he also doesn't betray his own. Not anymore. Vander's sturdy code of not betraying others is what separates these two cities. While the topsiders live in a place where political betrayal is breeding more heavily than ever, Vander chooses to make his city a place of honor as best as he can. But this comes into conflict with Silco's goal of equality. And by equality, I mean more like killing the city that's oppressing him. Silco believes that no matter what, we can't allow the topsiders to oppress him, and anything is worth stopping them. And when he kills Vander and takes over the Undercity, the true spark of irony takes over. Silco's ideals of taking down the topsiders because of how they treat everyone is so strong that he becomes a topsider himself in a way. After the death of Vander, we get a time skip, and we see the Undercity has changed under Silco's rule. It's become more organized. Silco, in his determination to conquer, turned himself into a topsider of sorts. When Vi and Caitlin are in the lower parts of the Undercity, we see what happens to those that even the Undercity leaves behind. The city has become a hypocrite to its own suffering. Now, this is just one example of how the show uses the city itself to express what characters are, and reversed. The city is always evolving to meet what the characters are doing, and it shows. The characters are the cities they live in. I think this kind of world building in a show hasn't been done in a long time. The world is breathing through its environment, and the people are existing in it. But none of this would have been possible without one crucial detail for this show. The most obvious part of Arcane is probably the animation. The animation in this show is some of the finest I've seen since the final season of Clone Wars. Never before have I seen such life breathed into these 3D characters. The world itself feels breathtaking when seeing these beautiful shots, and I also feel like the show looks better as it goes on. The animation is the second side of the coin for the world building of the show, because without it, everything else would quickly fall apart. The lighting and the effects in this show help create a mood that a few shows are able to replicate in live action. Its tone permeates through the entire show, never relenting. When you look at the scenes like Jace facing the council for his experiments, the world feels against him. The lighting permeates through the room until a focused light is on him and only him. The feeling of being alone echoes throughout the room as it is clear that no one believes him. Countless opportunities are shown through this style. Jinx's chaotic episodes, Vi's aggressive drills, and Victor's hallucinations. The way the characters experience themselves around the world is beautiful. The animation is also excellent in showing a character's facial expressions. I don't think I've ever seen a show do such a good job in showing us what a character is contemplating through the animation itself. Facial expressions are expertly done through this show, and you can see every nook and cranny through it. I'm not sure what more to say about the animation other than that, and it's just amazing. And everything we're talking about is leading up to the best part of the show in my opinion. In Arcane, we have 10 major characters that have a large influence on the plot of the show. There are obviously more, but these all have major effects on the show itself, and every single character is great. I mean it. There is not a single main character in this show where I have felt like they are poorly written, unnecessary, or even annoying. These characters are all written with a specific personality that are all natural and in line with their character. A good example is when you first meet Silco. In Act 1, he seems like your typical antagonist, but it turns out he has a lot more underneath the surface than you might think. He doesn't want to rule the world or anything like that, he just wants revenge on Vander and the Topsiders for what they did to him. So in Act 2, when he's killed Vander and is ruling the Undercity, it becomes clear that he still has a mission to destroy the Topsiders, but it also becomes clear that he genuinely believes this and thinks it is the right thing to do. Another aspect of this is that he loves Jinx. He doesn't know how to handle her, but he does trust and believe in her. This is way better than making him evil for the sake of it or having his entire motivation be revenge. He isn't one-noted, he's multiple colors. Silco's motivation in the entire show make him relatable, and funny enough, not hateable. I've seen villains like Silco before in Act 1, but rarely do I see them evolve into the character that he is by Act 2. Another character I think is shown well is Caitlyn, whose mission to be her own person is everything to her. But it isn't until she meets Vi that to do this she actually has to step out of her comfort zone. She acts like she doesn't want the entitlement that she's been given, but then gets frustrated when people don't give her exactly what she wants. She's evolving, and she learns this quickly. Each character is evolving, they are constantly learning, and this is apparent by the time jump from Act 1 to Act 2. Everyone is being developed. We're learning about people, who they are, and what they want. But when we move to Act 2, we see what the character development has grown into. Some characters have stayed the same, like Mel or Vi. While they have matured and learned more about the world around them, their core personalities are still intact. Compare this to someone like Jinx, who has literally created a new identity for herself in order to forget the wrongs she has done, and the trauma she's enacted on herself and those around her. Arcane's time jump from Act 1 to Act 2 is brilliantly done because while things have changed, history still repeats itself. We see the war between these two cities brewing again, we see Jace struggle to find himself, we see Victor try to fix himself, and more. The characters are never stationary, always trying to develop and learn more and more about things around them. They are developed wonderfully, but none of them are done as well as Powder, aka Jinx. When you first see Powder, she is hesitant, she's not like the other kids. You can tell she's smarter than most of the others and has a desire to prove to Vi that she can be just as good as she is. But as we see her, we also learn some subtle clues that she isn't like the others mentally. And this is most apparent when we see her being left behind by Vi. She can't take it. Why would she leave her behind? Why isn't she ready? She just wants to help, to do the right thing, to help Vi and the others with their mission. Why won't Vi let her come? And the response that it's to protect her isn't enough either. It's because she's too weak. It's because she isn't strong enough. Because she's a Jinx, someone who only hurts those around her. So to prove her wrong, she follows him and will accidentally ruin her life. When watching this scene, it's hard to imagine the total chaos that Powder is about to cause. And no one really knows what's going to happen until... her invention works. The bomb set off, cutting off the bad guys from Vi and the rest of her friends. She did it. Now Vi will see. Now Vi will understand that she was wrong and that she's not a hindrance, but an actual asset. She's viable. She isn't helpless. And then she learns what happened. The people she tried to save, her friends and Vander, were gone because of her. She didn't mean to, she just wanted to be strong, to save her sister, to help them, to prove that she was worth it. And her results were killing everyone she cared about. And she can't take it. And when the worst happens and her sister, the only person she has left, the only person who has ever cared about her or has always been by her side, leaves her, she has nothing. That is, until Silco. When Silco approaches, he fills the gap that Vi left, and Silco embraces Powder. His high-pitched manipulating voice changes into his more realistic voice, because what just happened to Powder is what happened to him. They were both left behind. They were both abandoned by the ones they cared about. Powder has someone now, someone who won't hold her back, someone who will not abandon her, right? When we see Powder again, she's older, matured, but different. She's unstable, ruthless, and broken. She's changed. Her name is now Jinx, but no matter how hard she tries, she's still haunted by her friends who died that night. She's still the weak little girl inside of her. And when Silco tells her to relax, she retaliates. Something happened to her that night. While we could all see that Powder was a little unhinged, Jinx isn't even on the wire. Whatever was keeping her sanity under control, it broke. And now, she is something else. Powder died that night, and Jinx was born. At least, that's what she wants to believe. And after everything happens, she still has one person on her mind. She still has Vi, and while Silco is working to remove her grasp on Jinx, it's hard to tell if she could ever really shake it. The repercussions that have befallen onto Jinx have warped her insecurities to a point where all she sees is doubt, chaos, and lies. Unlike any of the other characters in the show, Jinx is the only one who has taken the tragedy in her life and pretended to move past it. Instead of facing what she did, she chose to bury it. And the creepy corpses around her of her friends are a reminder of the pain she's enduring. I think Jinx is one of the best examples of how trauma can shape someone in such a severe way. And all this trauma that Jinx has built up from Act 1 to Act 2 all leads up to the final act of this show, where Jinx has to confront everything that has ever happened to her and has to decide. All the trauma that she's been enacted, it snaps her subconscious, and this is no better realized for me than the tea party scene. This is probably Jinx's most powerful scene in my opinion. After everything she's been through with all her friends, family, it all comes down to this moment. This is where the battle between Powder and Jinx ends. One chair is for Jinx, while the other is for Powder, and each has an advocate, Vi and Silco. As each tries to convince her who she is, her confusion only grows. She wants to go back to who she was, but she's also stronger than she's ever been before. But who loves her more? Who cares about her? Who, after everything, is going to stand by her? The confession from Silco is extremely powerful. Throughout Acts 2 and 3, the show has been challenging Silco's loyalties between Jinx and the Undercity, and it was always hard to find where he lied between these two. But here, as he dies, he still loved her, and let her know that he would never betray her. This loyalty isn't just a touching end to Silco, but it also is what finishes the battle between Jinx and Powder. After the death of her father, Jinx looks over and she chooses her seat. Throughout the entire show, Jinx has been unstable, unpredictable, and chaotic. But for some reason, after the death of Silco, she seems to be the most focused she has ever been. There don't seem to be any voices telling her what to do. There are no twitches of doubt, but just a confident person who sits in her chair and describes who she is. This is how you write characters. This is how you develop people. Through realistic struggles, with problems that are relatable, with personalities that are empathizable. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Characters make a show. Whether it is a movie or TV show, your characters need to be strong and relatable. You can have not so great looking show or a badly written show even, but the characters are relatable and likable, then the show can survive. Characters are what we grasp to. It's why West Wing is successful, it's why the MCU is still going, and it's why Arcane is so powerful. Characters are essential, and Arcane focuses on that dynamic. Arcane is brilliant because of the animation that floods the world, with an abundance of light and beauty while allowing the characters to express themselves. It is brilliant because the world we're experiencing is filled with life and realistic struggles, with classism and tribes fighting each other. It's brilliant because it makes us love the characters in it. It takes generic subplots, executes them flawlessly, and then at the last second flips them on its head. Arcane is brilliant because it makes you care.